It is a Friday afternoon. The grocery store sheet cake has been sliced in the break room. The slightly awkward speeches have been made, and you finally hand over your keys and your security badge. You walk out to the parking lot, get in your car, and drive home for the last time. Monday morning rolls around, and you sleep in. Tuesday, you finally clean out the garage that has been bothering you for 3 years. Wednesday, you read a book on the porch with a second cup of coffee. But by month 6, you are standing in the aisle of a local hardware store on a random Tuesday morning, staring at light bulbs and wondering if this quiet, endless weekend is really all there is. We were sold a very specific version of the American dream. The story goes that at 65, you stop cold. You flip a switch from being a producer to being a consumer. But if you look around your community, you will notice something changing. A growing number of people in their late 60s and 70s are still working. We need to be honest up front. For some, work is a choice. For others, it is the financial bridge they never expected to need. But even among those who have saved well, the trend of clocking in after 65 is rising. Today, we are going to look at 3 distinct reasons why Americans are choosing a slower transition instead of making a sudden change, and how understanding their choices might completely shift how you plan your own exit strategy. I am Helen. We usually talk about the math of stepping away from the desk, but today we need to talk about why the most powerful financial move you can make at 66 might just be refusing to stop completely, and the hidden cost of getting this balance wrong. Let us start with the first reason, and it is the one that keeps most people awake at night: the money. But it is not always about avoiding poverty. Often, it is about the heavy emotional weight of spending your own savings. You might have run your retirement calculators a dozen times before you gave your notice. You factored in Social Security, your traditional IRA, maybe a small pension from an old job, and a conservative withdrawal rate. The spreadsheet says you have enough. But then you actually retire, and the psychological reality of drawing down your life savings feels entirely different than the math suggested. When you are working, a dip in the stock market is just a minor annoyance on a quarterly statement that you file away in a desk drawer. When you are retired and pulling money out of those accounts every single month to pay for groceries and electricity, a market dip feels like a direct personal threat. Suddenly, the county property tax assessment jumps, your Medicare premiums inch up, and the cost of a basic plumber visit seems to have doubled since the last time you called one. Taking money out of your investment accounts to cover these everyday things can trigger a deep sense of anxiety. You start hoarding your cash. You stop traveling. You hesitate to spend the money you spent 40 years saving because you are terrified of running out. Enter the part-time paycheck. Earning just $15,000 or $20,000 a year changes the entire emotional landscape of a household budget. It is not about buying a luxury car or a vacation home in Florida. It is about paying for the weekly grocery delivery, the unexpected roof repair, or the flight to see the grandchildren, without having to sell investments when the market is down. It creates a psychological cash buffer. Having even a modest stream of active income allows you to leave your principal alone for a little while longer. It might even allow you to optimize your broader financial strategy. For someone who has already reached full retirement age, delaying Social Security until 70 can increase the monthly benefit through delayed retirement credits. That small, steady paycheck acts as a shock absorber against inflation. It gives you permission to actually enjoy your hard-earned savings, knowing that your basic monthly bills are being covered by the work you are doing right now. But the money is only the surface level. Reason number 2 is about the silence of the calendar and the sudden loss of identity. For 4 decades, your job gave you a structure. It told you where to be, when to eat lunch, and who to talk to. Even if you complained endlessly about your commute or your difficult manager, you belonged to a community. You had a title. Let us look at Linda. Linda is 66 and lives in Ohio. 3 years ago, she made her final mortgage payment. She is entirely debt-free. And between her savings and her husband's pension, they do not strictly need more income to keep the lights on. Yet every Tuesday and Thursday morning, Linda gets in her car and drives to the local public library, where she works the circulation desk and helps coordinate community events. If you ask Linda why she does it, she will tell you it has very little to do with the paycheck. In America, the very first question we ask when we meet someone new is, "What do you do?" When the answer becomes, "I am retired," the conversation often hits a strange low. The hard stop happens, and suddenly you have all the time in the world. You do not live by a boss's schedule. You eat when you are hungry. It feels like pure freedom. But for many people, freedom without a daily purpose quickly turns into isolation. There is only so much golf you can play before it just feels like walking on grass. You can only reorganize the kitchen cabinet so many times before your spouse kindly asks you to find a hobby outside of the house. You realize that a Wednesday afternoon feels uncomfortably empty when everyone else you know is still at the office. You miss the banter. You miss solving problems. You miss feeling useful. Working, whether it is consulting in your old industry, taking a low-stress job at a local garden center, or doing what Linda does at the library, provides a rhythm. It forces you to get dressed, leave the house, and engage with the real world. You might find yourself actually looking forward to the monthly homeowner association meeting, just to have a lively debate with another human being about the suspiciously green lawn down the street. Work provides a built-in social network that is incredibly difficult to replicate from scratch when you're 65. By keeping a foot in the working world, you may be giving yourself more chances to stay mentally engaged and socially connected. But right here is where we need to pause, because there is a trap hidden inside this trend. Not all work after 65 is a healthy choice, and this is where the emotional trade-off gets very real. Working because you actively choose to, and working because you are trapped by a lack of planning or rising costs feel entirely different in your daily life. If you are taking a part-time job just to cover basic survival expenses that your portfolio should have been able to handle, the stress of your working years does not magically disappear. It just changes shape. You are still trading your physical energy and your precious time for basic safety. And that is a difficult position to be in. And worse, even if you do not need the money, if you do not set strict boundaries, a flexible consulting gig can slowly consume the time you were supposed to use for your family, your travel, and your health. It is very easy to fall back into the old habit of answering emails at 8 o'clock at night just because you want to be helpful. The risk of going back to work is that you forget why you retired in the first place. You have to consciously focus on protecting your time and choices. You must remember that you are no longer trying to climb a corporate ladder or impress a regional manager. You are trading your time for a specific benefit, and the moment it stops serving you, you have to be willing to walk away. Which brings us to reason number 3, and the most practical shift happening in American retirement today. We are finally embracing the idea of a phased exit. The all-or-nothing approach to retirement is starting to look very outdated. Instead of making a sudden change, people are negotiating a glide path. This is partial retirement. Maybe you approach your employer at 62 and ask to drop to 4 days a week. Then, by 64, you drop to 3 days a week. You take a proportional cut in pay, but you keep a foot in the door. You keep the intellectual stimulation. You keep the social connection, but you begin to buy back your most valuable asset, which is your time. You learn how to be retired slowly, rather than having it forced upon you all at once on a Friday afternoon. Or perhaps you pivot entirely. You take the lifetime of complex skills you built in a high-stress corporate environment and apply them to a local nonprofit or a small business in your town, entirely on your own terms. You accept a lower hourly rate because you are actively choosing lower stress. You let go of the status. You no longer care about keeping up with the Joneses or maintaining a polished professional image. You are working for the sheer satisfaction of being useful, while still having the energy to walk the dog, cook a healthy dinner, and sleep soundly through the night. This phased approach is the essence of quiet wealth. Quiet wealth is not just about having a certain dollar amount in a brokerage account. It is about having the clarity and the flexibility to control your days. It is about preserving your dignity and your ability to make your own choices. So, when we look at why Americans are continuing to work well into their late 60s, we see a picture that is much more nuanced than just a financial shortfall. It is about maintaining control. It is about staying relevant. It is about easing into a new identity rather than abruptly closing the book on your professional life. Look at your own timeline and your own accounts. The decision you face is not simply whether to work or not to work. A good retirement does not necessarily mean you never earn another dollar. It means you finally hold the cards. It means you get to decide how much you work, what kind of stress you will tolerate, and when it is time to say no. Your homework for this week is to sit down and audit your ideal week in retirement. Do not just write down travel and hobbies. Think about your daily rhythm. If you were to add 10 hours of work into that schedule, what would it actually look like? Would you be consulting, mentoring younger professionals, or doing something completely unrelated to your old career, like working at a local bookshop or helping out at an animal shelter? Figure out what that looks like in your mind and see if it changes the way you feel about your financial target. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you had to work 2 days a week in retirement just to keep a routine, what job would you actually enjoy doing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel. We are building a community of people who want a quieter, more intentional approach to money and life after 50. Thank you for spending some of your time with me today.